Just like here to the west, so people.
Yeah, that's fine. So we have a lot of clients who do, but just in case
Yeah.
you were doing it because you thought you had to. So
Thanks.
Do we have a roll call?
Sure, trustee Kells,
I'm here.
treasurer Hennon.
Yep.
Trustee Simpson.
Here.
Trustee Allen.
Here.
Absent trustee Sass. Also present Chief Evans, attorney Joe Miller. James Howard is not here yet, is he? Yes.
Nope, not yet.
Okay, and John Paldudo, who's Sawyer Paldudo.
Do I have a motion for the approval of minutes for regular meeting, 10/18/22?
Motion to public comment.
No, that's not how it works.
Oh,
It says
sorry, I
approval of the minutes.
skipped.
Okay, I mean, I can do it any way you want, but you have to type it that way.
Motion to approve the minutes from 10/18.
I will make the second on that.
On favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved. Any public comment? Brian? Now, this time, we'll give you a chance at the end of the meeting in case you get confused or can't follow along. Can I have the treasurer's report, please?
Yes, sir. Reports in your packet. One quick note is we talked last time about there are a couple of CDs that were maturing. I have a meeting this Friday with James Howard to discuss what our next steps are going to be. So we're meeting via Zoom, but nonetheless meeting on Friday afternoon. So.
Considering money markets and.
Yeah, just and I don't want to just be the one going, hey, I should, I'd rather have some professional opinions on it.
I don't blame you whatsoever.
That is really the gist of my report at this point, and looks like James is still not here, so I think we'll just delay his portion until he shows up.
He did say.
the investment report is part of that. So
Sure, why don't we jump in?
This is part of the presentation.
There's a presentation. Yeah.
Right.
Sorry.
Because
I apologize.
he's not on the agenda per se, but
Mhm.
so we can't.
It's on
But I
So
don't
you
think
want to
we
wait till
can,
James gets.
I don't think I
here?
can approve anything since it's not on.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
So at this time, I'll need a motion, well, it's a roll call for the president, right? I'll need it for just the,
So I'm curious, do you want to wait for James to come on to make his presentation on the other things?
Because then you can have it all be as one.
Right. So that you do everything else and then come back to it when James comes on.
Well, we tabled
I
it.
can do that.
we can just let it roll, yeah.
Okay. I just didn't know if you,
Okay, I'm just trying to follow the agenda.
oh, okay.
Don't trip on any time.
We're not gonna get in trouble now for buying. I moved to place the treasurer's report on the table. There we go, done. Second, the table. Close out.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Okay, chief's report, let's roll.
Thank you, sir. So this month, the Alliance training was the Alliance multi-company special operations training was technical rescue. It was held at the Frame Building, formerly, for those of us that live in the area, a lot of people know it as the old General Mills buildings in West Chicago. Hosted by a combination of West Chicago and Carroll Stream, who are our biggest technical rescue agencies, and they did an exceptional job. It was a training that none of us had ever seen before in our lives. It was as realistic as a confined space incident can be. It was exceptional. Went through the entire process, including the paperwork that's involved in doing one of those incidents. So again, must say the Alliance training is all real world, and it was exceptional, and it compliments to the Carroll Stream and West Chicago company members that put that on. It was absolutely great. Real world stuff. Monthly multi-company training is this month. Every November is firefighter rescue and a RIT drill. And this is kind of the culmination of our year. This is the last live fire drill until spring, because the weather is not conducive to us being out there. And this is really everything that we've done all year comes together, this drill, because it's as hardcore as it gets with respect to firefighters actively fighting fire, all of the command and control elements with that, company operations go with that, then multiple firefighters down. So splitting off and working all of that system without losing accountability, without getting anyone hurt, all of that. So it's the biggest drill of our year, and was off today. Unfortunately, we had to cancel the third evolution because there was a big fire in one of our neighboring towns, Wheaton, and so the third session was canceled. It will be going tomorrow, the next day as well. If anyone's interested, as always, I'd be happy to escort you out there if you want to see the drills go. Obviously, we get into the run reports later on the agenda, and we're up again, as we all know. But recent incidents to note, again, I don't get into EMS calls as a general rule out of sensitivity, but just if our friends and neighbors are asking us, hey, what was going on over there, that kind of thing, that's what I'll bring up these types. On October 26th, Engine 31 and the deputy responded to West Chicago for a structure fire in central West Chicago. On October 29th, we went for a reported structure fire at Roosevelt and Gary's Mill, which turned out to be a big debris fire. Which, point for bringing this up, remind everyone that there are foreign ordinances and be cognizant of that, because we had half of DuPage County, several $100 million worth of equipment rolling this way. So we were assisted on that. West Chicago, Wheaton, Carrollton, Bloomingdale, Roselle, Warrenville. Again, it's a rural water area, so we had to bring tenders from a long way away. So there was a lot of stuff rolling this direction. On November 3rd, in the area of Prince Crossing and Morningside, there was a brush fire. Both us and West Chicago was kind of right along the border of a significant brush fire that the company spent quite a considerable amount of time fighting over there. So if anyone saw all the trucks and all the traffic and all the smoke over there, that's what that was. A controlled burn from the Forest Reserve District that had gotten out of control. 11/5, the tender went up for a fire in an unincorporated unhydrated area in Bloomingdale, assisted them with water supply. On the 12th, we had a small, it came in as a structure fire, turned out to be an appliance fire on Cooley Avenue. And then today, we were over in Wheaton assisting them with a multi-family dwelling fire. Service anniversaries for this month, Lieutenant Dave Fermento, who started with us as a part-time member, was hired full-time, has been with us since. So when I talk about some of those people, Dave, Tim Roman, Ed Troutman, Dave Fermento, started part-time and became full-time with us. I talk about their total years of service because that's how long they've been with the district in totality. Dave's 27th anniversary was on November 1st. And firefighter paramedic Matt Smith, his 13th anniversary was on November 9th. So the electrical update, obviously it's still progressing, but stalled with the situation with the Irmer family since he's been leading on that. Fleet update, Brian Burke continues to work super hard for us and is doing a lot of really great work. The new command vehicle has been delivered, scheduled to go to the outfitter on Monday the 21st. All the equipment for it is in. The new engine, the last update I got, which was a few days ago, was still that it's in progress for hopefully June delivery. The new ambulance, we are waiting on some of the licensing and paperwork from the Secretary of State's office. And in the meantime, you'll notice it's not there because we sent it out to a radio installer to have some additional work done since we were waiting anyway. It was always work that was going to need to be done, but the difficulty with the upfitters these days is it's anywhere from 3 to 5 to 6 weeks lead time for all of them. They're all incredibly busy. So we're scheduling stuff and trying to get stuff in is our slots coming up with these upfitters. So since we had the delay with the Secretary of State's office anyway, we sent it out to get all that stuff polished off for good.
Is there a target date on that one out? I mean, being ready?
We called down, you called down,
Secretary of State.
and
I got told, I have a big stack here, so I'm not digging through the stack to get to yours. And so we do military vehicles and we do ambulances. I'll let you know when I get to yours.
Well, there you go.
Thank you very
so
much.
Can you dig through it? If I send you a check, can you dig through and get
I
us
have a
some
credit
time?
card ready to pay, just let me know.
so that's the story. There is no answer because there is no answer.
You didn't call the VA by accident?
Can we hold up our
So recently, the SAFER grant and the, all of the federal FEMA grants, including the SAFER grant, the grant award period had ended. There was a notification from the federal government that money had been added to those grants. In the case of the SAFER grant, $200 million was added. And there been, since that announcement was made about the 200 million, no awards have been awarded. So us, our neighbors to the south Warrenville are all waiting to see what's going to come of that. So we're still in that waiting period. The new firefighter testing is underway. President of the Board of Fire Commissioners is here. They've been working really hard. Just did almost all but 2 of the oral interviews last weekend. 2 of the candidates had asked for accommodation because they couldn't get shift coverage, and the board allowed the accommodation. They're being interviewed on Monday. All 12 of the people scheduled showed up. Interviewed.
Wow.
And oh, I'm sorry, Tuesday. That was my apologies. So yeah, that's going really well, and we should have that list up, and we've got at least 1 staff vacancy open at the moment. And then, as we've discussed over the strategic planning portion with our community at length about the 3 and then the 3, so that's going to be coming shortly thereafter. So
That's just great. That's just
That's
great.
excellent. 12 is a lot, by the way, these days. So
Yeah.
that's also,
It's 14 total.
that's also something to be here. 14.
Yeah,
And they showed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually, that's for an agency like ours in this day and age, that's a really good number.
I will tell you that I know a firefighter in Evergreen Park, and he was talking about, because he can't seem to get on Chicago because they want to be an EMC and he wants to be a firefighter. He was talking about coming out here to take the test. His wife was like, "I'm not moving to the suburbs." But he was like, "I can become a fireman." I mean, so we've obviously got a reputation starting. We probably never had a bad reputation, but I think since we passed a referendum, that reputation's got a little bit of a shine to it.
The referendum and the alliance were certainly
Right.
helpful.
Yeah.
Lieutenant testing also is underway. Resumes were due November 1st, and we have 6 applicants, so that's going to be six candidates going through the process, which is excellent. A couple other interesting points of note. Earlier or late last week, Village of Winfield had a very nice development meeting hosted by the Winfield Park District. Trustee Allen and I attended, and they gave a good presentation. There's an interactive things. I think I sent the link out to the board members. Interesting thing to check. There's a lot of really good comments, and there's even some comments relating to us in there. So that's good to know, to get that feedback via the village about having the same.
I can find those. So if you are able to still access the link, can you screenshot those or something?
It'll be open until December.
Okay.
So
There's a lot of pins on there.
there's a lot of pins, but they're related to this location. So if
Oh, okay. There's
you
specific to
click,
this.
if
Okay.
you, yeah,
I thought they were in the trail of other. things.
No,
Okay.
they're related to this location, but it tails into what our master plan
Yeah.
is going to be, and some of that. So it's a good thing. Please go back and check it. I'll resend out the link, and then I'll try and get some screenshots to send those comments. It could outlast my technological capabilities, but I will give it a shot. And then the architect update, which will be later on, and then a couple of other things briefly. I passed out, we just got this today, and like to keep the board informed. Ducon has announced a new executive director. The announcement was passed out to you. And the last thing is I had a meeting last week with the ETSB, as we all have discussed. They own the Starcom radio system, which we use, and Starcom radios, which we use, have reached their end of life, so they're replacing the system, mobiles and portable radios. It's an excellent system. It works fabulously well. Everything from radio signatures coming up from people talking on the radio, to the clarity, to the depth and distance of communications. It's an excellent system. It's worked out really well for the fire service at least. So in this replacement, we went through and had our meeting, what we're gonna get, what we asked them for, what we were gonna get and all of that. And it was continues to go in progress and it's hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment we're gonna get. So compliments to the TSB for really working hard to make it a good
And
program.
at no cost to the taxpayer.
At no cost to the
Is
district.
that funded by the county? Where does that funding come from?
State 911 taxes.
Oh, the 911 taxes.
Correct.
And
Not directly from a fire district tax.
No additional.
Yes. That's,
And that's all I have to report.
That's nice and short, thank you.
Really nothing to report, just,
Great,
next
okay.
meeting is
Yeah.
the levy. That's it.
levy.
Not just teasing.
A big one,
Anything else?
big one.
No, that's it.
Yes.
Good, that's it.
That's it.
Wow, great.
Done. Still no James.
Old business, do we have any? Don't think so either. Consent agenda, do I have a motion? Pardon me.
I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda as provided by the chief.
You want to make a mention like you always do about?
I do, we're now, you have the updated year to date.
Year to date, this year over last, as of 1,700 hours when I checked, 5 o'clock was 116 over last year.
And I did have one question, mutual aid at the bottom, that's on the year, or that's just in the month?
That's for the
That's
month.
just the month,
Yeah,
correct?
that's just-
So we received help from our neighbors 43 times in the
That's
past
quite
month.
much as we went
We
on.
gave it.
We had particularly,
Yeah.
within the recent period, those of you that are aware, we've had calls where our days where we've had 5 and 6 calls concurrent like that.
And we've also had, there's also been, I feel like there's been a larger number of large calls requiring a larger response as well as of late. So that dictates automatically that you're getting a more money.
Indeed, very true.
We,
had a motion. and
We didn't have a second.
we have yet to have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. New business, let's get started. We have discussed and possible action on selecting an architectural firm. Luke and trustee Sass and the chief went out. Thank you both. I want to thank you and
Trustee Sauce did not go. He was
He
unable,
went to one, I thought.
Mhm.
he was unable
He
to
had
go
to
that day.
cancel
I
last
take that. I have nothing to say to Phil.
He's not here to hear it.
so-
take it all back.
So I apologize. I was out of town, you were out of town, you were
Stuck at work.
you were stuck at work. So, thank you.
Yeah, so we only got to see one of each of each firm's building, we just given the amount of time we got to spend, but both agencies and architects were very generous in their time. Their chiefs of each department were there to answer our questions, talk us through, and they were willing to talk about the good and the bad. Now, the Rolling Meadows fire chief, which was the station built by Healy, Bender, Bean, whatever, their chief was not the chief who was there when they built that building. So I think they opened that station and then they got a new chief. So he didn't have that perspective of an administrator who got to work during construction with the architect. But that being said, he was willing to give us his opinions.
He had been a battalion chief with the agency, so he was a member.
He was
of the
around.
firm. He felt some of the effects of.
And so he got to share, highlights, things that were working well with the design, things that weren't working well, and some we wish we could have done differently comments. I think both architects, I heard both chiefs and staff say that they were content that the things that were important to them in the design were implemented. I didn't hear anybody say, and I specifically asked the question to both agencies, were there anything that you asked for that you didn't get, or that they didn't come up with a solution for to solve a specific challenge that you had? And they both equally said, no, they solved all the things that we were looking for them to solve. And of course, sites are different, layouts are different, you know. I thought if I had to award points to one or the other, I thought that the most creative use of space and practicality, like if I were a firefighter living in that place, I thought the design to make life nicer and the little touches to make their day job more efficient would go to the 845, right? Eight. I thought
The
that,
numbers, guys.
yeah. I thought that they really did a good job of implementing strategies that made it very convenient. So right off the apparatus floor, to your left is 3 restrooms, to the right is the locker room and sleeping quarters. Like it was right there next, and the kitchen was only a couple more steps away. So the most and the day room, like everything was just a few steps from the apparatus bay. It was quick and it felt easy to maneuver. The thing I think concerned me the most was at the end of our visit when the chief said we had started the construction and I was told I had to go get a transformer and talk to the gas company and begin the discussions for engineering for power and gas and telecom. That it had not been communicated that that was going to be the chief's or the agency's responsibilities during the construction. That was that seemed like a real red flag to me. That had, and maybe it was just a miscommunication, maybe it was just an oversight. I don't know, but it seemed kind of a big deal, and it didn't seem like. And again, we didn't go talk to other projects that they had done, so maybe it was just a one-time mistake. But that seemed like not the kind of thing we have the luxury to have that kind of mistake happen.
That's probably commonplace with all of the architects you're going to deal with. So under that profession, so there's a professional services election act. All right. So what you do is you rank the architects and that for that project. Engineering is also a selection under that professional service selection act. So unless their contract specifically said they were doing architect and engineering, which probably it didn't, you're kind of on the hook of having your own engineer. They will recommend engineers for you, but a lot of times they say, okay, because
Chances are you're doing that to save cost. I'd imagine. If you're
Or
having,
they're
if you're having
they're
them.
not large enough to have a firm like.
yeah. I mean, here's the issue with that. So for another district not too far away, they use an architect to do a project, and that architect provided their own engineer, and their engineer's things were not good. So there was an issue and things had to be rebuilt. So a lot of times we kind of have people do them separately because, you know, so now we're like literally we're in a this district is in a lawsuit, which we feel pretty good about because we have all the information saying it was the reason that the construction company had to redo things is because their engineer jacked it up or messed it up. So that's probably not per se. It was probably maybe the chief who was BC back then probably wasn't informed.
This is the other location,
Oh, okay.
the 845.
Yeah, but yeah, that's in my mind.
It just seemed like a breakdown in communication.
Yeah.
Which actually goes to part of the narrative where I think, well, that's where I'm going.
So we can't afford a lot of fumbles. We don't have a lot of staff free time to take on projects like this. They are a municipal, both places we visited were municipal departments. So they had, they were part of their village's operational government. So they had engineers and other kinds of people to help with these. I don't know that we have that luxury of any additional staff time. I think both did a fantastic job. I was happy with both. Like, I don't think we would go wrong with either choice we choose. I'm fully confident that I'll be happy with either one we pick. But at the end of the day, when I remember being here in this meeting room, watching the board choose a new attorney, one of the things that you valued in choosing our new attorney was having kind of a full service law firm. Like there are specialists down the hall from Mr. Miller who can help do anything within their workload. And so to me, I think one of the things that we heard from the Healy Bender organization was that they're a full service firm. They have checklists in place that for every step in the construction process, they walk you through exactly, they have checkpoints to make sure that everything gets done and is moving correctly forward. They also were the only architect that was willing to let us choose whether we wanted a construction manager
At risk.
which is an at-risk, a construction manager at risk agreement, or to use a general contractor.
Well, there was now, this is something for Joe, if I might, please, sir. A construction manager at risk, a construction manager advisory, or just go with a general contractor. Those are like the three basic options for how to configure an arrangement.
Yeah, I've never heard the term construction manager at risk, so that's a little bit different to me. I know that there are some architecture firms that, and maybe what they mean is that you hire your own construction manager. We have districts that have done that, and that's what maybe they mean at risk. Some of the architecture firms they're able to, they'll contract to serve as the construction manager as well. And then, obviously the general contractor, essentially you are the construction manager, where you're overseeing everything. So
The at risk, I didn't hear it as at risk either, but in talking with people that have built things before, I've never had the necessity to have something built. So for a lot of us, this is a virgin voyage, but it's the at-risk manager usually is incentivized by coming in under budget, and then you make a negotiation with him. If we come in under budget by X amount of dollars, we're going to give you X amount of those dollars as an incentive. Is how I was explaining to me that work.
Jake also, the architect that met us there also said when he was explaining that at risk that according to the contract, that person would also have a legal obligation and responsibility that they don't meet deadlines. Like your contracts would have deadlines and things built in. They would not be obligated to do bidding for subcontracting. So the at-risk portion is that they have financial stake in completion of the work versus the construction manager as an advisor role only.
So if they're not doing the bidding, I mean, that's one of the big parts of the construction management process.
Right.
I don't,
What are they doing?
yeah, I mean, that
was our point.
So now the 845 really preferred the construction. She wanted us to have a construction manager, and we didn't ask the question if we could had an option not to do this. It was brought up by Jake at Healy Bender Bean, but the general contractor, the architect firm would do the work of the construction manager up front, and they wouldn't reduce their fee. So if we hired construction manager, that work is passed off to the construction manager, but the architect's fee doesn't go down. So they'll do the work for the same price, but you don't get a discount.
And then the general contractor is basically the one that handles everything and gets everything dragged in on time.
Yes, the general contractor would not be around during the design phase. They would not be saying, hey, why don't you change to a drywall partition instead of a cinder block partition? So the general contractor would be brought in once you've got full plans and prints ready to bid the job, but the general contractor process allows you to bid out every single subcontractor. So you get the cheapest plumber, the cheapest electrician, the cheapest low voltage, the cheapest concrete, the cheapest mason, where that is not done usually with the construction manager, or may not. It doesn't have to be. They get to choose who the contractors are. So Jake indicated that he would be willing to, or he is comfortable with us choosing what's best for us. And he has some clients who do one, some who do the other. He doesn't recommend the advisor role. He said that's not something that would probably be best in our situation, but I don't think the other architect would let us do that. And so just at the end of the day, I personally felt that going with a firm who has built a lot more government body projects, who has a team of people in the office who are capable of dealing with whatever has to be dealt with, gives me a lot more comfort in making sure that this gets across the finish line with no significant blunders. Because I just worry about that. I don't think we have any room for error.
Now, did anyone ask questions about boring, testing the soils, things like that? Is this something that's on us? Is this something that's on them? Is that, when you're building something, now that ground's been very well settled since everything's been moved, but I still think I know when I was with the Riverwalk that we had to do boring and sampling and all that stuff. Was that brought up at all?
It came up at the wheeling station because they found an old farmstead foundation that nobody had ever told them about. So they're,
In my
yes,
conversation, it has come up that one of the early things we need to do, and the two firms had differing specs, thank you, for what they wanted. We need to bring in a certain type of surveyor, and then that survey, which the two firms have different things that they want to see out of it, that will roll into the engineering work, which would follow immediately thereafter, and that would be on us in either case before we get going.
so when Chief and I were driving up there, we discussed it would do no good for us to hire one of their recommended, because if we choose the other architect,
Right,
they
right.
couldn't, they don't want the data that the other guy.
I just hate to assume that we, do that terrible assume, oh, well, we hired you, and what do you mean, not, it's all because.
Right, so I think one of the reasons in my mind that we need to get a decision on this is so we can get their recommended surveyor out to get that work done here before the ground freezes.
Is there a belief that what the one is looking for that's different than the other, that one is better to look for than the other? Is there an incompetency that's
Good
happening?
question.
Because to me, why would they both not be looking for the same thing?
I think it's different levels of specificity.
Okay.
I suspect the wheeling chief said when they had their engineering done, they didn't pull enough core samples that they found, so they didn't end up finding the old foundations. But had they gone with the essentially higher magnification, like more frequent soil core pulled, they would have found those old foundations that they later found in excavation. So we didn't talk specifics about
Now,
the borings.
the borings should have been done when they built the subdivision over there. Because
Correct,
didn't
but
they put a retention pond in the spot?
they had to do a retention pond because originally that had kind of a lowlands in the
Right.
center of
Yeah.
that
So
property.
maybe the city's already, village has already done that, and something that we can look into where
Check on this.
that will save us a little cost. on that.
Talk to you.
But since they both had vendors, their vendor list was not the same to do their work. And it sounded like they had different levels of specification of what they were looking for. So it didn't make sense in my mind for the chief to go ahead and order that. Once we get our architect hired, I think then we say, okay, tell us who to hire and get it started.
Personally, I'm very comfortable, and I'm glad that you brought up, why we hired who we hired to represent us, aside from the fact that he's a very handsome man. And
I'm gonna disagree with that.
I want yourself here that they work for a different reason.
Not in your evaluation rubric, let the record show.
So is that I'm a little bit more comfortable having all the expertise under one roof. I think that, as you referred to, if person A can't answer it, he can ask person B, C, or D, and between all of them, they're either gonna know the answer or they're gonna find the answer for us faster than an independent might be able to. That's the way I'm leaning. I don't know which one's more expensive and which one's less expensive. I know we have a budget. But I think the ease of construction, we have a limited amount of staff. They're already overworked. I'm leaning, I'm in favor of what you're suggesting.
I did have one question, if I may. Chief, did you have any additional comments beyond what Luke was saying, any observations of your own that can help assist us in making a decision?
I largely agree with trustee Allen and the comments he made. And the one, I guess, addition or supplemental comment I would make would be this one. Were we doing a satellite station, a remodel on our existing station 32, building a new station 32, something like that? Because of the visits and all, you know, I might very well be inclined to have a preference for 845. But this is our main station. It's going to be the only one we're going to be operating out of for some period of time. And it's a can't get it wrong kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think while the ceiling might be higher for 845, the floor is decidedly higher with Healy Bender. And that gives me comfort.
So here's the process. You're not approving a contract tonight. You rank them and you authorize us to try to negotiate a contract with them. Because these architect contracts, it's a software form that they use, and we don't, as a firm, don't use it. So we have to go back and forth with them. And so it's not a thing where we get something and we're like, oh, this is perfect. No, it usually takes, a couple of weeks of going back and forth or so in regards to that. But if that's the choice, because I think you only had two. You had
Right.
Healy and
Yeah, we had already ranked them down to just those two.
Right,
So.
so then what you're doing is finding that you're ranking, if you guys are in agreement, you're finding that Haley vendor is number one on your ranking list, 845 is number two, and then you would be authorizing our office to begin the process of negotiating a contract for the construction of, new fire station.
Before, appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Randy?
I agree. I'd rather have everything under one roof where we can, they've got the communication within the same facility than.
Okay.
Is that a motion made?
Huh?
Is that a motion made?
No, that's good.
I will then make a motion that we proceed with the ranking of Healy Bender as 1 and 845 as 2 for the purpose of our attorney to go and negotiate a contract for architectural services.
That would be roll call because we're going to be
Yes.
spending money.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Okay.
We also need a second.
Second, wait, question.
No, so second, Julie,
Someone else second, so I can discuss.
Second.
So since I am friends with one of the principal architects, I shared this at the last meeting. Would it be most appropriate if I abstain from the vote? And does that?
Are you
Technically, that's your
the
problem.
owner of the company?
I am not.
Do you
Okay,
feel
then we
that-
can vote.
Okay.
Did you feel that friendship was?
I don't think it would matter either
And
way.
if you were concerned about, it, you could always abstain anyways, but that's on your prerogative, not
Yeah.
anybody.
Okay, well, I just
wanted to. Technically, you could abstain because that would then prevent us from having a even split.
I mean, you have three.
We already have, okay.
So-
You know what I mean?
Again, I just wanted to have it all on the
We have to
table
wait
and
until Father Phil came back.
I just I want everything on the up and up.
We should get them a collar for the December meeting,
Are we doing that roll call?
Yep.
Trustee Callis,
Yes.
raise your hand.
Yes.
Trustee Simpson.
Yes.
Trustee Allen.
Abstain.
We move on to discussion and possible action on the new ambulance purchase, which I think is gonna get tabled because we didn't get all the information we need, right?
Correct. There's still some paperwork on some updated information on the unit. So yeah, I would ask respectfully if it could be
I'll
tabled.
go flatten the tire on one of the ambulances he's got sitting out front tomorrow when I'm over there. And get him moving. Third one is to discuss some possible action on station 31 air compressor, fuel station, and air storage. And I believe that Brian is on the line to fill us in on that. Is that correct, sir? Maybe.
Yes, sir. I'm here to help any questions you have.
Keeping himself. Couple of things. Obviously, the board had the opportunity to read the memorandum. if you'll recall back to when we went for the federal grant a couple years ago, this was always something that just knew coming because the current Cascade or air storage system is almost 30 years old and was insufficient for the modern breathing apparatus we have. So the Brian, again, has done a masterful job on many fronts, was tasked with the mission of investigating this and finding something that we could port with us. If the determination is to move out to County Farm Road, porting, it would be movable. So it's not something that's cemented into this place. If we make a move and all that other stuff, and something that was a little bit future proofed. Obviously, you saw the cover memo, and now we'll kick it over to Brian. Thank you, sir, for joining us tonight.
There we go.
Brian?
Yes,
Now we got you.
you got me, okay.
Ready
I guess if you have any questions, what add to the memo that I had distributed through the packets?
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
If all the prices were the same, what company do you think will best serve us, not now, but in the future, for the packs that we're trying to, for everything we're trying to get accomplished here? Which one is the one that impressed you the most? Which one do you feel is going to be the most reliable and serviceable for our needs?
Okay, if they were all the same price, would be the one I recommended would be the Revolve Air. Being namely, our first most is the 5-stage compressor. The other ones were only 4-stage. This would be more efficient. It's reduced heat, lower noise for lower decibels for health and safety, and then longer life. Versus
sorry,
others.
Brian. Sorry to interrupt. You said Revolve Air or MES?
MES has.
It is.
Yeah,
Got it. Okay, I was looking for a vendor name and I was missing that, so thank you. So it is the MES
yes.
that you.
MES is the vendor for it.
Got it. Thank you. Okay.
So, which also leads into it, they have a local shop in Lombard and they have mobile techs. Talking with their salesman, he's more than, I talk almost on a daily, and in the service tech as well. So I know that I've dealt with them almost 15 plus years and he's never steered me wrong. So with that also too, I know another big ticket item there is the ASME bottles. If there's ever a change in capacity of our air packs, we get new ones, those bottles will be lifetime with a 7,000 pound rating. This is like one of those purchases that you buy now that'll be there for the time that I retire and I'm gone. And the next guy after me will retire and he'll be gone. So this is like from now until Winfield ceases to exist, if you will.
Okay.
It's a big ticket item, and that was something that was unique to this submission.
So Brian, let me ask you this, 2-year warranty on this compressor and fill station, it's gonna hit about the time that we'll be moving, correct?
If we do move, they would still be honored because it would have to be installed by overlooked by their techs, make sure everything is up to snuff. With that, we would have to have our own electrician go through it, make sure that they do everything up until the whip. So we'd be responsible for that. And that's the only reason why I selected this air compressor too, without going to a bigger model, is that would fit with our current electrical threshold, if you will.
Okay, all right. So we wouldn't have to spend any additional monies on the station to accommodate this equipment.
If we do, it'll be very minimal compared to the overall purchase.
All right, all right. And would that have been the same with the other bids that we have here?
Yeah, anytime there's any sort of installation, the last like 3 feet to the electrical panel is going to be on us.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions. Some of the bids recommended traders talked about trade-ins. Are we planning to trade our old one in, or is that gonna be moved to the south station? We're getting rid of the old equipment?
Yes. It just doesn't work with our tanks.
Okay.
So, Trustee Allen, with that, we saw the quotes as far as what's trading value is. It's pennies on a dollar what we paid for back then. However, you can add to the surplus list, or like I said, Bob with MES said he would facilitate the sale if we so desired versus trading in.
As we're choosing these, does it matter what the other alliance units have? Do they all essentially operate the same? Or would an alliance neighbor need to have interoperability with ours?
So there's a couple of questions. There's basically predominantly in our area, there are two manufacturers of air packs that everyone uses. And we have of them. In the type of air packs that we use, there's high pressure and low pressure. So there's like a 4,500 pound bottle and 6,000 pound bottle. So we opted for the same one. Ours are the same. Our air packs are the same as West Chicago, one of our partner agencies. Conversely, Brian, or actually Seth too, either, I think Carroll Stream has, do they have Scott or no? I believe they do.
Carroll Stream has MSA.
Yeah.
Roselle has Scott. The only difference is I believe they have the quick change bottles versus our CGA fittings, which is like
So
the
there's-
thread on top.
So there's a lower PSI air pack and a higher version. So like West Chicago has a Cascade, and that's kind of what we use if we have like a big event and have to fill a lot of bottles, because ours is old and doesn't keep up. If we're doing a bottle here and there, it's kind of getting the job done. But when we get into filling a lot of bottles after drill day, 2 bottles, it can't get the job done, which is part of the point. So in terms of interoperability, yeah, if we had a fire in town or big event in West Chicago, Carroll Stream, whoever had to come over and fill bottles at our facility, it would work.
They would, okay. That was my big concern. And this gives you the capacity you need for when you have those larger events, that the new compressor would give you that capacity.
Yeah, that was entirely the rationale behind the needs.
Okay. Any further discussion or anything you want to add, Brian?
With the purchase of this, I did my homework a while back. I asked the 2% board of the foreign fire tax for additional funds to help acquire this equipment. They graciously gave me $28,000 for the purchase to add to the fill station and compressor bottles.
Very grateful for that. Yeah. My take on it, guys, I think that the bid appeared to be comprehensive and it gives us the best opportunity. The recommended vendor, I should say, gives us the best opportunity for what we're gonna need long term.
Right.
And I think in the end, none of us want to still be sitting up here when we have to do this again for this type of equipment. This one, based off of his comments now and just to look at everything, I think it prepares us, it future proofs us better than other.
So is that a motion?
To me, I would, or I don't know if anybody else wanted to make any comment about it before.
And this is a regularly budget. This was in the budget. It has for this year.
Then I will make the motion to approve MES for the quoted services with a grand total of $77,428, of which $28,000 is coming from the Winfield Foreign Fire Tax Board.
Second.
Any more discussion? Okay, roll call vote.
President Kills,
Yes.
Treasurer Hannah.
Yep.
Trustee Simpson.
Yes.
Trustee Allen.
Yes.
Passes.
Thank you, Brian.
I really appreciate you doing all the hard work. I hope you get better because you are truly missed here, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. We don't have anything to talk about on the surplus list? Do we want to?
The old fire engine is up to $2,000 today.
I hadn't checked the latest. I thought it was like 1,400.
And there's 2 days left. There's 46 hours left.
So you got your chance. Go buy it. Go buy it.
1969 Chevy brush truck.
You have to shake, you have to,
So tell me what yours is.
do you have a tow truck?
I have a hitch.
Do you have a
You
tow
get some
truck?
bailing one.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Did you want to
I can do, yeah, if you guys have everything.
jump in before we do our pay the bill so that
Yeah.
you're not?
Tim, you want to let in somebody who did this?
No,
No, not James, but someone else did show up, so come in just so we have him.
James had another meeting at the same time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that
It's
one-
okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why don't we, I feel bad that we've kind of moved on waiting, but I don't feel that you need to
I'm
wait
fine
for long.
wherever you guys want.
I think we're ready for you, sir.
Very good, thank you. First of all, reintroduce myself. I know everybody for the most part, but Don Feldhugo from Sawyer Feldhugo Asset Management. And thanks for having me tonight. One of the things that I guess I want to focus on is, how we got to this position today. Number one, first of all, as you know, we've worked together with the fire pension fund here for many years. I continue to help out, even though the consolidation has happened, unfortunately. And for those who don't know, that police and fire pension was about $3.5 billion of assets under management for our firm, of the total of about $4.5 billion. So the consolidation has certainly been a change for us. Now, I'm 55 years old, I've been doing this for a long time. If I was a firefighter, I'd be thinking about retiring, that type of thing, but I'm not ready for that yet. But long story short, one of the byproducts of our pension business for the last many years has been building relationships with fire districts and municipalities to do something similar to what we've been doing for fire pension funds and police pension funds for many years. And what's really prompted the last 6 or 8 months of us to be really busy with these meetings, as a matter of fact, the meeting James was at Lab, and our chief investment officer was also presenting tonight. And essentially what's happened is interest rates have gone through the roof. And if you paid attention at all, whether you're trying to borrow money or you're depositing money or investing dollars in bonds, interest rates have gone crazy. And what's happened is most of our municipalities and fire districts that have started to talk with us have realized that, hey, our bank balances are just not earning enough income while we've got significant chunks of money sitting in those accounts. So I don't know what the dollar amounts are, that kind of thing. It would be helpful, to hear what James has to say later, that kind of thing. But I put together a couple of samples and things like that for you, just to give you a sense of things. What Sawyer Feldhugo has been able to do is help fire districts and municipalities invest those quote unquote reserve dollars, whether they're cash reserves that they might need in a month or 2 months or 3 months, or dollars that you earmark that are your true reserves, dollars you're going to use to build the station in a couple of years, dollars that are your long-term capital dollars that you might never spend, or just your carry over year to year. So what we've done is built a little model, if you will, that takes advantage of interest rates and that type of thing. And I'll show you in a minute here what it looks like. I figure I'll skip past all the first, 8 or 10 pages, which is kind of the information about our firm, you know us already. Let's get right to the meat and potatoes, and I'll direct you a couple of different pages. Number one, if you could turn to page 13. Of 31, page numbers are at the bottom, middle there, there'll be pages that are going to get format when you get closer.
Hey, look at that, more than.
Yep. And so long story short, this is our 33 Illinois Fire Protection District clients that we currently do the same thing that we're going to talk about here tonight for. And many of these have been clients for a number of years, not just the last 6 months or so. We've certainly added some recently. But if you look down the list, you see there are some that are certainly generally right here in your neighborhood. And there's also some that are, fire in Burlington, Oregon, et cetera, but all Illinois, obviously. We're blessed to, and I'm not going to use it as a promotional tool, but we work with Joe's firm on most of these. As you know, they're prevalent in the fire district industry, as well as your accountant, James Howard. Again, not looking for a commercial or a pat on the back from him, but we have a lot of mutual relationships because he's doing so much work in these arenas. And we have a great working relationship as well, which I think is important to the whole thing working, if that makes sense. I'm also proud to say that everybody on this list has come to the list and not left the list. If you follow me, we don't have anybody that's hired us and then fired us at any point. We're proud of that as well. But I'll flip you back just a couple of pages. We have our police and fire pension fund reference list as well. I include this because ironically, of the 174 police and fire pension funds that we had prior to consolidation starting, we are proud to say that almost all of those funds have retained us on a consulting basis or a retainer basis after the consolidation has occurred. And I'm proud to say that I think everybody's figuring out that that's been very valuable as well. For a firm of people that have 25 plus years of experience with each of us at the department head level, helping coordinate those things. You may have a legal expertise, accounting expertise, actuarial expertise, but once Sawyer Feldhugo goes out the window, you don't have the investment expertise and the operations expertise, and that's been very helpful as well. So I'm proud to say that almost everybody on here has retained us. There are a few that have significant finance departments, for example, in their municipality. They've just taken over a few things and felt we can do it ourselves. Okay, that's fine. No hard feelings. But for the most part, certainly most of the funds have accepted our proposal for that. And then we also have on page 21, the Illinois Municipal a library and park district type clients as well. So you can get municipalities there as well as some other agencies. The next page, it should be 22, the pages aren't sticking together here. I mentioned a moment ago that interest rates certainly have changed. And as of the other day, the yields on specific types of investments that are allowed under your current government agent, which is the Public Funds Investment Act, you can invest in treasury notes, CDs, government agency notes, municipal bonds, and corporate bonds that go out 3 years or less. You can see where interest rates are, just significant increase from where we were 9 months ago, or excuse me, now 11 months ago. We looked at 12/31 yields, well under 1%. Today, 4 or 5 times that. That's certainly something to get excited about. The other aspect of it is, it's not even listed here, is money market yields. So we use a government money market fund. It's the place that we hold cash in all of our pension accounts that are still with us, because there are some that haven't converted yet, and all of our municipal relationships. So if you tell me, hey, John, we have $1 million to invest, or $5 million to invest, we need $1 million of it extremely liquid, because that's what we're going to use for operations. We have another $4 million we know we're not going to need for 3+ months. I would put that cash in the Schwab Government Money Market Fund, which is all T-bills and government agency type notes, so there's no principal risk, if you will. That's paying 3.4% as we sit here today. So even money that's not doing anything other than sitting as next day availability is 3.5%. That's a pretty good situation right there. So it gives you an idea of the the interest rate scheme, if you will. One thing I'll point out, let's just look at that treasury note column. As we sit here today, the treasury column is very comparable to anything else on the page. And of course, if U.S. Treasury goes under, if you will, and can't pay their debt, we're going to be worrying about a lot of other things other than a couple of dollars here at Winfield Fire, if you follow me. So, just make it the most safe and secure type investment that you can get, which is zero principal risk, and have those types of yields, is certainly a pretty good place to be. So I wouldn't see us venturing much past those couple left columns, maybe into the agency column as well. The next page, we put together what we call our sample portfolio, and it's essentially, if you look out, we call it a 0 to 3-year portfolio, and it's really just there to give you some perspective. Honestly, if we were to do this today, I don't see us going out past 2024 with our maturities, because actually, once you get past 2024, yields are actually a little bit less. So why take that additional maturity risk? Stay a little bit shorter, have a little bit higher yield, and you'll be in a better position. So just to give you a sense of things, I had the guys just throw in some numbers using $1 million in sample portfolio. See the 2022 maturity, so something that's less than a month or two here. Average yield would be 4%. 2023 maturities, you've got the treasuries, agencies, CDs, again, averaging, if you look at the total there, 4.68%. Those are things that will mature in 14 months or less. In 2024 maturities, again, 4.77. And then again, if you go out to 2025, 4.6%. But if we blend all that as a portfolio, looking at the bottom row there, bottom couple of rows, total portfolio yield, 4.66%. We do charge 20 basis points or 0.2% annually to manage that. So for $1 million portfolio, that would be a $2,000 annual fee. Net number would be 4.46%. And the benefits you have on top of somebody just paying attention to it for you is we would also hold those dollars, those assets in a Schwab custodial account. There's not an extra fee for that. Of that $2,000 or whatever the fee ends up being, Sawyer Caldulo rates the check to pay the Schwab expense. We get a bill from Schwab for all of our clients in aggregate, and I rate the 5-digit number, 4-digit number, depending on the month, of custodial expense for our clients. So that would be included in this. And along with that, you get not only the reporting of the statements, that also go to James directly. We send those in directly via email the day after the end of the month, but also you have performance reports and things like that that come from us, whether they be emailed to you monthly, but also then show up at a quarterly meeting or 2 a year and say hi, or every quarter, whatever you wanted. We certainly don't want to give you a 3-minute presentation every quarter if you don't want us, but we're certainly glad to do it if you wanted to see us. So the whole process, from our perspective, just to give you a sample of kind of the end product, the whole process ends up with what you see on page 24, and that's a sample of one of the quarterly reports. And this is for our friends up in Byron, public information that they're a client for a long time of ours. This is a report that's a little bit dated. It's a sample back to 2020 when interest rates weren't nearly as high. But what we try to provide starting on page 26 is a whole bunch of information
And what I promise you I won't do when I do come out to see you is sit here and read every number on page 26. But instead, we'll highlight a couple of important things. In other words, what's your allocation at the top of the page? What's your market value? And then you see the cash flow review, month to date, quarter to date, year to date, inception, to give you a sense of, hey, how are we doing in these various timeframes? So you have a good idea of what's happening in the portfolio. We then project out the income in the middle of the page there, so you have an idea of what kind of cash flow will come in. And we also project income and maturities at the bottom of the page. And that's useful when you do have things like a project. For example, if you say, hey, we want to open up a Schwab account, and that's going to hold the station money, the money that we're going to use to pay out over the next 3 years or 2 years with this project. And here's kind of the payout schedule. That'll give us a nice summary for that account of what the income coming in and the maturities will be. So we know, hey, we got what we need, or we need to make an investment. And that's something that people like James and our firm talk regularly to make adjustments, so you don't have to worry about it. Make sure we're all on the right page, right location of dollars. If you look at the next page, page 27, we keep a running total of the growth of the portfolio from an investment perspective, from an investment gain perspective. So if you look at the bottom there, this portfolio started back in 2015. The inflows, they funded the 7.2 million initially, and they've taken no money out, and they've added no additional dollars. And you get a kind of a month by month, or excuse me, a quarter by quarter look at how the fund has grown or actually gone down a little bit. And I want to talk about that for just 1 minute. You'll note, for example, back in the fourth quarter of 2015, the investment gain was actually a negative number, down $20,000. You say, well, wait a minute, John, you just told me that we're going to be in a principal safe situation. How do we have a loss for a quarter? If we ran this report, and I really should, to be fair, run it through 2021, you'll see in 2022, I should run it through 2022, with interest rates going up dramatically, the value of bonds has gone down. So this fund might now be worth $8 million instead of 8.2 million. But remember, that's a paper loss, right? When interest rates go up or down, the value of bonds, if I had to sell them today, would be worth less today than they were 9 months ago. It's just a fact. Rates have gone up, value has gone down. But remember, in 2023, 24, 25, when those bonds mature, they're going to mature back at face value. So today, that $100,000 bond that was worth $100,000 on January 1st, if I sold it today, it'd be worth $90,000, no question. But in a year and a half, maybe get $100,000 for it. Plus, I'm earning interest along the way. So over the long run, it's always positive. But yeah, you're going to open a statement sometimes. We went from 8.2 to 8. What happened? We got to fire these guys. No. Trust me. But so from that perspective, and the benefit there is, as those dollars mature, early 2023, if bond comes in, it's 100,000. Now we're taking that dollar, investing it, instead of getting 0.90% yield. Today it's going to get you 4.5% yield. So you're reinvesting. We want it to be rolling. That's why we never have everything out 3 years and nothing 3 months. Yeah. We have a little bit of a ladder to everything, so we have the ability to reinvest. There is nothing fancy about these portfolios. This is simply an alternative to keeping a bunch of money sitting in a bank account where the bankers decide to pay it 2% or 1%. We just had one yesterday, it was 0.05% yield. And
Yeah, we got 1.2.
I was about to say, that's not really.
That's what I went for. I just said, that's what I'm talking. I looked at ours and I'm like, yeah, we're making
That's why we're rolling it out.
5.3, yeah.
and again,
Right.
that's the, how do banks make money, or whoever you have money. No offense to banks, I worked for banks for many years. But the benefit to a bank is interest rates on mortgages are now, what, 6.5% or 7%? And we're paying you 0.5% or 1% on your deposits. The spread you're making there is the profit to the bank. Well, right now, we're buying actual bonds that are paying 4+%. We take a little bit of fee to keep our lights on, and you reap the benefits of that. Now, I don't have to sell you that you know us and all that kind of stuff. You've known us for a long time, so there's no smoke and mirrors. It's pretty straightforward. We're not going to make $1 million a year doing this, but at the same token, it brings value to the fire district and continues to build our relationship. So that's it in a nutshell. I'd be glad to answer any questions. There's a lot of other due diligence type stuff here, but I thought I hit the high points because we do know each other pretty well.
Right.
I appreciate this. Is very, very good.
Well, it just touches on what you were talking about in your report too. I think it's something that I'd like to see on our agenda for next month, since we can't do too much tonight because it's not on the agenda. But,
Melissa, I'm meeting with James on Friday.
right.
And so I'll have a lot better sense of what the options are with the money that way.
Maybe you can put out a quick little, report to Robin, and Robin can have it, because we all report to Robin.
Yep.
And,
And she can distribute.
and she can distribute the findings, so that
Exactly,
we can come into this educated in
Yeah.
December and make some decisions, okay?
absolutely. Thank you.
One thing I would just point out too, we can open up, in some places, they want to have one Schwab account, they do all the accounting. And other places say, let's have our reserve money that's really short term, our station money, our other, whatever you guys need, we can, put it together. We've got 33 different methods of doing things. We're glad to
Cool.
find one that works for you.
That works.
Respectfully, I would also point out the fact that in our situation, we've got recently the relief in the form of the tax cap relief from our community to fund a substantial, not outright huge expansion.
Yeah.
Relative to our size, but there's gonna be a lot of things moving quite a bit,
And
so.
we can use as much money as we possibly get our fingers in,
Yes.
because it's
You're needed.
gonna need it.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're not greedy, we're needy. So,
The more we get from interest, the less we have to get from someone else.
with that, I need a motion to pay the bills, please.
Before we go to the building, sorry, are we tabling the treasurer's report until next month when James is here, or?
You can, or if you guys have reviewed it and don't have any questions, you can accept the paper report, but if you want to have him do a presentation on it, then the table it, it's your choice. That's all, I thought I saw it.
Yeah, I passed it
Yeah,
out.
yeah, you did, so that's up to you guys how you want to do it. Sometimes, yeah, James isn't able to make it, but in some of the districts, they're like, we'd rather have him come and explain it. If you guys are okay with the report, and you're like, we've read this, we're good, then you can accept it in the report that you want, and there you go. That's up to you.
Rob, I'll put that on your plate.
I suggest that we table it, not that I'm anticipating there be anything in there that is going to cause us grief, but I think it's just better to have the full information before we
Very
agree
comfortable.
with something, so I think it's best to table it the next, until next month.
Great, okay. So, that motion to table.
If it's on the table, it waits until the next meeting.
It's all right.
So we've already addressed.
I think we already
everything
did,
here.
yeah.
That's why we did.
I have a question on the bills.
Go
Sure.
Pay them. There was just one, I had a question about the dive pool rental. Is that just a training, like, did we go to their park district and just use their pool? Is
Yeah,
that?
so an interesting thing about the dive team, water rescue team is this. Whether you believe it or not, pools are incredibly difficult to get. And there's a lot of good value that comes out of pool. We try to get out in open water almost all of our dives a year because diving in zero visibility and the weeds and all that comes with it is a big deal. An there are times, so the few things that the water rescue teams need for pool are we have to do an annual swim qualification where we have to do what's called the watermanship test. You have to do a large swim in a bunch of emergency procedure stuff. We do initial training in pools. We do periodic monthly diver training pools. That's what this was. So in this particular one, they were kind enough to offer us the opportunity to rent the pool, which is itself a tough get in today's day and age.
Yeah.
Most of the local pools in our area, whether they're high school, we've used high school pools in the area before, park district pools in the area before, and that's a tough get these days. College pools, tough get. So the Bensonville pool, they were kind enough to offer it up for our use, but we had to pay them for it. And we hosted the monthly training, and it was kind of an obstacle course of sorts, which is something you want to do in a pool. So it practices a certain amount of the skill set required for self-rescue and emergency procedures, but you're in a controlled body to the extent that you can, a controlled body of water. So if you get yourself into a bad way, they can go get you. So yeah, that's precisely what it was for training for a pool for the dive team.
I was just curious.
Pool party.
Yeah.
I will make the motion to pay the bills in the amount of $83,980.60.
Second.
Welcome.
President Gales?
Yes.
Treasurer Kent?
Yep.
Trustee Simpson?
Yes.
Trustee Epps?
Yes.
Pay the bills.
Before we go into executive session, if there's need for one, I want to find out if there's any additional public comment.
I do have public comments.
Yes, sir.
Yes, so just kind of overhearing the board meeting today about the new station and things, I just like to present maybe a possible recommendation. There are, because of the fires, board of trustees has tried to be very transparent in raising funds and spending and things with the community. And me being a resident of the community, I would like to make a recommendation to the board to consider possibly, as this project goes further, to maybe have some kind of citizen advisory board overseeing the station's progression of being built. Just to kind of keep, I believe that there's wisdom in the group. And I think you're a good group of wisdom that we've elected as elected officials. And I just think sometimes you can use some citizens that would be willing to volunteer their time to be on an advisory board that might know construction knowledge and things. As you were speaking of engineering and soil boring and things, I work for Public Works as my day job with the Milton Township Highway Department. We issue permits, for the highway department. We work with the board with DuPage County permitting. And usually when you do a construction permit, that's one of the first things you have to do when you're doing new construction is a soil boring and sample thing. So just a little knowledge there, you have to hire an engineering firm to do that anyway for an engineering review to get a permit in most cases of new construction. So just a little bit of insight of my insight to the board for just that. But just to take an advisement, you don't have to do it. My personal opinion, I think that if you had people that, if you put it out there to the, all the residents of the fire district, that if anybody would be interested or had oversight knowledge to be part of the meetings. Thanks for.
No, it's real good.
Thanks for
It's real
listening.
good. Thanks for it's real good input. Yeah.
And there's no other public comments online?
Yeah.
Nothing seeing?
I don't.
We got a person for a minute and then after.
Yeah. I don't have it.
And he has nothing going on. Although, so there's anything that we need to discuss that I'm unaware of in executive session?
I have nothing.
All right, well then, I would entertain a motion.
So make the motion to go home. Make the motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Adjourned. Thank you.
And I